Famous author and wife of well-known Scottish minister Peter Marshall, Catherine Marshall had a storybook life. Before there was Billy Graham, there was Peter Marshall. He was born in North Lancashire, Scotland. Marshall heard the calling and at a young age moved to New York City with no money, and this was in 1927. He graduated from the Columbia Theological Seminary in 1931. He served in New York City for quite a while. Then he moved to rural Georgia, and then to Atlanta, and eventually he served in the local assembly of New York Avenue Presbyterian Church, and then also as the chaplain of the U.S. Senate. He was soaring in his career. In Atlanta, he met his future wife, Catherine Wood, who was a student at Agnes Scott College. They married in 1936. In 1940, Catherine contracts tuberculosis, and believe it or not, there were no antibiotics to treat that at the time. She spent 3 years fighting the illness and trying to recover, and she beats it. She even conceived a son in that period. Then in 1949, as his ministry was reaching unprecedented levels, Peter suddenly dies of a heart attack, leaving their 9-year-old son, Peter John Marshall, and Catherine all alone. 2 years later, her biography called A Man Called Peter is published to both nationwide success, and even a film was made. Catherine Marshall wrote 220 books, sold 16 million copies. Christie was her second most famous work about her mother in the Appalachian Mountains, which was made into a TV miniseries. She passed away at the age of 68 and now lies near her husband. So why am I telling you all this? Peace. Where do you find it when tragedy strikes? Sickness, COVID-19 diagnosis, loss of employment, maybe even death of a loved one. Catherine Marshall had to raise a young Peter alone and raised him in trusting God. She wrote books that many in our sound of my voice maybe you have read. And we need to find peace in the midst of circumstances that are well beyond our control. The prophet Isaiah wrote, "You will keep in perfect peace, whose mind is steadfast, because he trusts you." Trust in the Lord forever, for the Lord is a rock eternal. And I'm here to tell you, we need to find peace. And where do we find it? I think we need to find a rock. I know the high ground, if there's some kind of inclement weather, you want to get to the high ground. You want to get to a rock, you can actually cling to a rock in a storm. In Picture of Perfect Peace, Stories of the Heart, published in 1996, Catherine Marshall tells of an illustration of a king who sought the perfect painting of peace. The king offered a prize to the artist who could best capture what peace really was. Many artists attempt their best renditions of peace, and the king in turn looked at all their pictures carefully. After carefully observing, he narrowed down to 2 pictures that he sought were the closest and decided to select one of them. One was a picture of a calm mountain lake. It was the perfect mirror of those peaceful mountains all around it. Above there was blue sky with fluffy light white clouds, and trees blew gently in the breeze, and you know, it was just the picture of perfect calm and peace. The other picture had mountains too, but they were rugged and bare, and above it was an angry sky, and the rain fell, and there was lightning displayed, and down on the side of the mountain there was a foaming waterfall of power. It didn't look peaceful at all, but if you look closely, behind the waterfall was a tiny bush growing in a crack of a rock. In the bush, a mother bird had built her nest. There, in the sound of that rushing angry water, sat a mother. She was warm and she was quiet in her nest. So which picture do you think won the prize? In Scripture, God doesn't promise calm waters. He doesn't promise even a calm sky. I recall a book from my childhood that reinforces this Catherine Marshall illustration today that my mother used to read to me. Where Does the Butterfly Go When It Rains by May Garelick. I can hear my mom's voice even saying that sentence and reading it to me now. It teaches us there's peace, and what does it use? It uses nature. It shows all the different animals and how they deal with the rain. Without pretense, May Garelick brings peace to children about storms and rain. The question remains, where does the butterfly go? It never really shows the child where the butterfly hides. The book stimulates critical thinking about possibilities and allows for much discussion with a mom like my mom, and perhaps other parents or even teachers. So where do you go when there's a life's challenge? Most of you know all the well-known Bible stories show stormy times in the life of God people. When we consider Catherine Marshall, can we expect an answer to be found to where we find peace? Is it illustrated in the first picture, or is it illustrated in the second picture? In the reality, to believe that the truth is demonstrated when we're entitled to live quiet lives in calm existence. So what happens when all hell breaks loose in the setting and calamity strikes? So if you're thinking that the picture of the mountain and the calm streams, that shakes you when somebody lies to you and tells you that you're going to have no problems if you follow God's plan for your life. That's a lie, because the reality is this earth is out of control. These people around you are out of control, and we're free will beings, and we can do what we choose. Jesus did not come to provide easy lives on earth. Instead, he wants us to be awake to his promises no matter what stormy waters approach. He came as a wake-up call to us, to the nations, and one that says love is not easy. Following me is not easy, but the struggle's worth it. God's peace does not come in the form of ideal circumstances. There is benefits of grace. It's a free gift of God's love and provision, no matter our own choices or even our own pitfalls. Back to Catherine Marshall's story. As you probably know, the king chose the second picture because the king explained peace does not mean to be in a place where there's no noise and there's no trouble or there's no hard work. Peace means to be in the midst of all things and still be calm in your heart. That is the real meaning of peace. I love Catherine Marshall. I think she's a terrific woman. Never forget that it is our confidence and trust in the one who guides you through the circumstances that we can truly experience God's peace in those circumstances. And introducing Catherine Marshall, I shared Isaiah 26, verses 3 and 4 to you all to illustrate where perfect peace comes from. When we trust our God, God promises perfect peace. But it is more like the bird in the second picture experience from our Catherine Marshall story and illustration, or the butterfly sheltering in the storm, as my mother read to me. Safety is found in shelter, not in the absence of the storm. If we nestle ourselves in Yahweh, our God of promise and provision, we can trust the perfect peace he provides, no matter what the storms may come our way. And in 2020, they certainly have, haven't they? I just can't tell you. I want to help be an encouragement. The church wants to help you be encouragement. Call the office. Call me. Text me. Whatever you need. We want to help you find that shelter. Find that safety. Because there is no absence of the storm. Blessings. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.